Hey folks, welcome back to Iriomote, and today is going to be a bit of a different day because we've left the jungles behind, we've left the waterfalls and the rivers behind. I'm going to be concentrating more on the coastline, and there isn't much of a rocky coastline similar to we have in the main island of Okinawa. It's mainly mangroves, and so today is going to be a black and white photography project, and I'm looking for minimalistic shots like this. We've got this lone mangrove tree, the tide's gone out, so you've got all these nice roots all around its base. And what I am going to be shooting today is extreme neutral density filters. And the reason why, normally you associate that with movement. Now we've got no water, and if there was water here, it'd be very calm, so there's no point using an ND filter because all it's going to do is look calm. But we do have clouds in the sky, and those clouds are moving. And what the edit I would like to come up with at the end of the day is either a low key or a high key, depending on the lighting that we get in the final shot. So that means either we'll be erring towards the shadows or erring towards the highlights. Okay, but that will be determined by the image that we end up with. Now, in order to shoot this image, I'm going to be using a massive ND 32,000, which is about 15 stops. And what I mean by that is it reduces by a factor of 15 the number of aperture light stops going into the camera. So in order to compensate for that, if we're staying at a minimum ISO of about 100, the way that we compensate for that is by extending our shutter speed to extreme lengths, and in this case it's going to be something around about 4 to 5 minutes. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get set up, and once I'm set up I'll take you through my settings and we'll head into the shoot. Okay, so the first of the filters to go on is going to be my grad filter, and that way it allows me to check my gradation point, because once I've got the massive ND 32,000 on, I'm not going to be able to see anything. Okay, I'm happy with that. All that remains now is to set all of my settings. I'm going to opt to be at ISO 100. I'm going to be at where did we say, F8. Okay, now my shutter speed is going to be a massive 4 minutes. Now in order to do that with this camera, I do have a feature. I go into bulb mode, okay, come into menu, and then it will allow me to go into my menu, and we're going to change now. Okay, now I've got my 4 minute exposure set. All I need to do now is place in my filter, line that up with the top shoulders of the filter holder, and we're good to go. And all that remains is for me to trip the shutter, and we'll be good for 4 minutes. Okay, well the tree came out awesome. We'll go through the edit when we get back to the studio after this quick trip to Iriomote. But as you can see, I've got this really nice composition now set up just along a little ways along from where the tree was. We've got this nice piece of driftwood and nothing else. Okay, the clouds still in the sky, they're still moving a little bit quicker, but not as crazy quick as in the last recent days. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a different filter. In fact, I'm going from a 32,000 to a 10,000. So 15 stops of light with the 32,000. With the 10,000 ND, we're going to be losing 13 stops of light. Okay, so what that means is I can speed up my shutter speed a little bit and be not so dramatic with 4 minutes. In fact, I'm going to be halving that to around about 2 minutes. Okay, so the setup's going to be pretty much the same. I'm going to be using a soft grad filter for the sky, and then closest to the camera lens I'll be placing the ND 10,000. All right, so let me go ahead and just place the ND in place. There we go. And now, just a little bit of dust there. Now I'll just check my ND, my graduation point. And once that's done, I can set everything else, and I can see this is going to be quite a nice shot. Okay, the camera's level, focus is set. We're going to be on f11, ISO 100, and I'm going to adjust the shutter speed to 2 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to set the filter in place, and then we will be good to go. So now we're all set to go. All that remains, start the shutter, and off we go. So what a fantastic location. Just walking along the beach, I found this awesome piece of driftwood. It's obviously been there for quite some time because it's just not budging at all when the waves are hitting it. This has easily got to be my favourite time of the day, sunset. And I think sunset is one of those things that evokes so many people to take up photography. It's just a magical part of the day, and when you can spend it in a location like西表with the conditions that we've got now, it's just the icing on the cake. But when the waves pull out, they leave some nice lines behind. I'm hoping that it's going to stay until sunset because the tide is going out quite quickly, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll see how it all goes. Because we've got this big expansive ocean, it looks like we've got some nice clouds forming, and yesterday's sunset here was incredible, so hoping that we're going to get more of the same. As you can see, got the sunset about to happen, fingers crossed, in the distance. So I've got at the moment, one of my go-to setups on the camera. I'm shooting with my Lauer 12mm f2.8. And in front of that I've got a couple of filters. I've got, firstly, on the outer edge, I've got a 0.9 soft grad, and in front of the lens I've got an ND32. We're still quite early in the sunset, so the sun can still be a little bit harsh, hence the reason for the 32, which is a 5-stop neutral density filter. Okay? We ND32, there we go, and Mother Nature provides this wonderful furniture. So here we go, so the ND32 is going to go closest to my lens. Okay, slots down there, and what I then prefer to do is just, I don't take into consideration the metering of the camera. I prefer to walk the settings in, because when you're using ND filters, even now it's saying I'm 2 stops overexposed, but in fact the image is still pretty dark. So let's go ahead, and where are we at the moment? We're at 1/8 of a second. Okay, and that's actually looking not too bad. So all I need to do now is just wait until a nice wave comes in and try and get some of these lines that are being created as the water recedes away from this log. All right, my settings, excuse me, I need to check my lens because it doesn't, and that's what we needed. Okay, so I'm on f11, ISO 100, and at the moment with an ND32 and a soft grad 0.9, my shutter speed is 0.8 of a second. Now that's only going to get longer as the sun goes down. The conditions are going to get less, there's going to be less light as time goes on, so that shutter speed will just become longer and longer. Without hoping that it doesn't become too long, I will just change to a lesser density of filter in order to retain a shutter speed of around about a second, 1.3 seconds, which for me generally tends to be the sweet spot when you're trying to get water movement. Okay, well, I took a drastic step, and what I've done is I've actually shifted the log further into the tidal zone. What I was trying to do is, we've got a few pinks appearing now in the sky, but what I want to try and do is to get quite a dynamic shot as the water pushes past the log, okay, and comes up to us here. As you can see, I've got my tripod legs resting on this piece of driftwood. It's nice and solid in the sand, and if water does come to it, as opposed to a tripod leg which would normally sink, it's staying pretty solid. So a little trick for you there. I've changed out my ND now to an ND16. It's allowing me a shutter speed of 1.3 seconds, which is my sweet spot for moving water. So I'm hoping that we're going to start to get a bit more colour in the sky and get a nice dynamic shot as the water comes past this log. Looks like we're going to get some good shots now. Aperture wise, I'm on f11, ISO 200, shutter speed 1.3 seconds.